a podcast about amazing people from an incredible state. Amazing Arizonans with Mike Broomhead.
Hey, back with another episode of Amazing Arizonans, and I've been waiting for this for a long time. Frank Caliendo.
Yeah, it is great to be here in the thick-chested guys forum.
First of all, not many people know that you're an Arizona resident. How long have you been in Arizona?
And that's the way I wanted it until now. Thanks.
Well, you're here.
Yeah,
so
that's true. I should have done.
We didn't do this on Zoom.
That's right. What was the question? I lost already.
How long have you been?
I was Bidening.
Okay.
Folks, come on. What was the question? I know the question. I could answer the question. How long have I been here? I've been here 18 years. 18 years. We moved here when my daughter was born. She was born in Cleveland, and we upgraded to 105.
I was born in Cleveland. I didn't know you lived in Cleveland.
Yeah, we had a place. My wife's from Lorain, the west side of Cleveland.
Yep.
So we had a place in Avon Lake. Some people get places in Malibu. I had a place on the west side of Cleveland.
Yeah, my last memory of Cleveland when I was a little boy was the river caught on fire.
Yeah, well, why not?
So,
that's a great thing.
A great thing to remember.
It's a great
about
thing.
A city.
The river on fire. The river's on fire.
Which, oddly enough,
I keep going to Trump too.
It's going to happen. It's just too easy. Look, that saved me right there. That saved me. That's a saving.
I'm surprised
wonderful.
you didn't wear the bandage.
I have been. I've been changing bandage sizes during like little bits I'll do online, and people catch it and figure it out. So yeah, we'll see how this all plays out.
The nomination that year. The RNC was in Cleveland when he was nominated.
Oh, really?
I was there for that nomination.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was in the queue. It was where.
The queue, yes, the queue. With that, and I have to be careful with the Q-tip right now because I have a very devastated ear, and it's coming back. It's coming back. We're regrowing it. Trump regrowing ear regrowth serum. It's going to be the best.
I know that you are. First of all, you work clean. You don't do.
Until now, I'm going to go dirty.
Oh, you are good.
I'm going to go.
Well, this election cycle, how could you not?
No, I do tend to keep it pretty clean. I do a lot of corporate work too, so it's like for me, it's more that if you get seen doing stuff out of that realm too much, people start to question, and I'd rather them not question.
But right now, isn't it hard to be topical or to be contemporary when you have the big story is this politics? How do you stay away from offending one side or the other?
I go right down the middle and make fun of everybody. So if I make fun of one side, I'll do the other. So for like Donald Trump, I don't talk about the actual politics. I talk about the people in politics. So it's more like the caricatures or characters, but they are kind of caricatures.
Yeah, oh, sure.
But with Trump, he's got that look like he's looking into an aquarium and mimicking the fish. That's what I was talking about. Did this. And Joe Biden's the only guy I've ever seen listen with his eyes. So they'll make, Mr. President, folks, so. And now with Kamala, it'll probably be, I'll just work on the cackle, so we'll see.
I saw on Instagram, I follow you on Instagram like everybody else does, and when you made that comment, and I can't remember where I saw you make it, that Joe Biden's the only person that listens with his eyes. It was one of those observations that was so obvious once you said it.
Right. Now you can't unsee it.
Now you can't unsee it. And he does. It's amazing.
Unless there are some videos where his eyes don't blink and they're twice the size of normal. There's like so many different things where you'll see Biden like this, like when he's reading, and then sometimes it's like this, and then you're just going, wow, how can that be?
So how do you walk the line? Because if the guy's in decline, there's a point where.
Well, he's still the president. That's my point. I don't do Joe Biden from, even if there were to be a speech, I do Joe Biden from 3 months ago.
Right.
That's what I do it from, when everything was fine and everybody said he was great. So that's the point I look at. We'll see how this all plays out, but I will probably just talk about more the differences between Trump and Biden in terms of how they speak and stuff like that, and put it in the past tense.
So are the voices I've asked?
And I go back all the way to like Obama.
Oh, I've heard you do every
Bush,
one of them.
And Clinton. Like that's what I do, is because what I try to do is start with the most current and then work the way back with presidents, and then it seems to. It seems to be like not topical that way, but at least it seems relevant.
But you also, what I love that you do with the voices is you go with the stereotypes, so you get the voice down. But when you do when you do Bush, you go right into the nuclear and some of the other verb, the way he talks.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you're
I
able
put
to
fire Kate on A things. Think of fire, brainificate, Make it good. And then laugh like a Muppet, right? Think he's watching this election going, and they thought I was weird.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Can you imagine what they're doing?
It's just crazy.
So this is a weird question, so I might as well get them out of the way quick. The voices. Is it an art or is it a science?
I think it's both. I think there's both to it. I think the science of it is listening and trying to get the cadence and the pitch to a certain point where people recognize it. And then the art is probably making it a character and finding your own point of view and putting your own spin on it. So I always say the eyes, the mouth tells you how the person talks, like I said, like with the Trump, but the mouth tells you how they talk, and then the eyes tell you how they think. So as soon as those eyes, I'll do Jeff Goldblum, a non-political one. Yes, of course. So you could do the voice, and it's there, and you kind of understand it. But as soon as you add the eyes, and they dart around like a painting in a haunted house. Ooh, I'm following you. That's when it becomes the character and more fun to me. Otherwise, it's just a sound-alike type of thing.
Can you teach? So if people asked you to teach them how to do voices, can you?
Yeah,
teach
you could teach certain amounts of it. I even do these. They're more entertainment-driven on some of the stuff like Instagram and Facebook. Like, for example, Morgan Freeman. You start with just a deep voice and you go as quietly as you can. Go, yes, yes, and then you build up that strength. It's almost like building up a muscle to the point where you get to yes, Then you start to really figure out what the pitch is. Yes. Truth of the matter is, and that's 2 years of work right there, just put in that short amount of time. But that's what you can learn to do something, and you can make something that's very passable. It doesn't have to be exact. Like if you're trying to just be funny with it and have humor, that's what the internet's different than sketch television used to be. So sketch comedy on TV used to be make a big caricature of the person. Now a lot of because that phone that everybody's looking at is so small, it seems to be that people want a more dead-on impression. And I'm usually somewhere in the middle of the Dana Carvey type of caricature and the Daryl Hammond dead-on type of, voice mimicry. So that's my resting spot.
Well, you look at like characters like Matt Foley. Those were so over the top. Is that what you're talking about in that sketch comedy?
Yeah, that's have you ever seen Will Sasso at Mad TV do Kenny Rogers? I'm Kenny Rogers. Yeah. Kenny Rogers never did anything like it. My John Madden became that, that kind of big over the top character, which is what made it funnier and goofier and made it a character as opposed to just the impression.
Was it Tina Fey that did Sarah Palin?
Yeah.
That was over the top as well.
Yeah, but a lot of people didn't even see that as over the top.
She was so good at that Sarah Palin never said, "I can see Russia from my house."
Right, yeah.
But they attributed it to her because she was so good at that impression.
Right, yeah. I think that happens a lot. That happens a lot throughout. Like Dana Carvey, not Gadet. That was never George H.W. Bush. That was something that he didn't say. That was just what he created. I did that with Madden. With the Madden was here's a guy. He said it once in a while. All sports people do it, but people really started to think of it as that's what it was.
Watching today on Instagram, we were talking about it before we turned the cameras on. I watched you on David Letterman as John Madden.
Yeah.
It was hilarious because even if the sound was off, I knew you were doing Madden.
Right. Well, I did have the wig on and the nose, but it's one of those things where that was an interesting situation for me. Letterman never brought on fake guests. I was the lead guest that night. I think that's the one where I was the lead guest. I did it a couple times, but I think that was the one where I was the lead guest over Ben Stiller, and Ben Stiller was like the biggest movie star in the world at the time. And they said, we're having John Madden on, and they didn't say it was somebody playing John Madden. That's just John Wood. They acted like John Madden was actually there. Even in the TV logs, the direct TV and the guides, it said John Madden as a guest. So I could see why John Madden might not have liked me.
Did Madden not like you?
Yeah, I finally met him at the Super Bowl in Dallas. And I made his grandkids laugh, and it turned a little bit there where he got it. Until then, I was kind of like, there was never an opportunity. You'd think we would have crossed paths, but there was a story. Jimmy Kimmel had brought me on when Kimmel was still doing that stuff on the NFL on Fox, and he brought me on and took a pair of hedge clippers to the Madden eyebrows, because Madden was notorious for having, those were Muppets themselves, right? And the next day, legend had it that John Madden's eyebrows were trimmed for the first time in 20 years. So it made an impact. And
but don't most people get it? Don't most people like it?
I think so. Some people just get worried it's going to hurt their bottom line. It's going to hurt their money. But what it ends up doing is gives Madison Avenue, the advertisers, a hook to write for people. I've had plenty of people plenty of impressions I've done where the hook that I have come up with is what ends up being in the commercial. So, I guess that's.
And how do you couldn't know? I mean, he's passed away now, but you couldn't hurt Madden money. I mean, that guy
people
was,
just, it's different. NFL coaches, I think it's a little different now. It used to be in a club and nobody made fun of it. They weren't used to seeing it. Now there's specific sports podcasts and different TV shows. That happens all the time.
But when you do a voice, or when you do an impression, it's not just the voice. I can always see you really morph into the character, but none more than Gruden. You are so spot on with John Gruden.
Pretty fun right there, man. That's a good one, Yeah, you got to get that look going, that thinking, man. Get the Chucky look going.
Right.
Spider 2, why banana? I tell you what, man. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Did he like it?
Yeah, loves it. He's one of the people that ended up doing commercial, and in the commercial, he texted me one morning. It was 3 a.m, which I think is lunchtime for him. He's like, I just got done doing a commercial where they had me do an impersonation of you, man. I was too scared to ask him what that was, but I think they were saying amp it up and be more like Caliendo. So yeah, that's that happens all the time. I shouldn't say that happens all the time, but he's one of the best and got it the most, and just had fun with it.
For a guy that comes across like you don't want to make him angry, he looks like a guy you. He's kind of
he's a normal. He's kind of a jokester, goofy guy.
Is he?
Yeah.
Aren't most of them?
So it depends. Everybody's different. There's different characters. Like Belichick, I don't know Bill Belichick, but I've heard plenty of things where he's much more ridiculous than what you see on TV. He's not that same guy.
Have you turned down gigs like the roasts and some of the other things because you got to go dirty in those roasts?
Yeah, I've had some opportunities in the past. It's not my thing. I don't really like to go. Roasting is just not fun for me, so I never thought I'd do a good job. The only one I ever did was the Terry Bradshaw roast, and I knew him so well it was easier to do, and my stuff came off silly. It came off decently, but it was just sillier than not.
What is he like? Is he the same guy you see on camera?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, he's not cautious on TV really, but he's less cautious in person, like anybody would be. Just behind the scenes, a lot of fun, silly, he's carefree, and just. He likes to have a good time. He likes to have people around him to have a good time.
I think that I'm jumping all over the place, but what they pulled off on that pregame show on Fox is so unique. It's such a great show. It's almost better than the game. And I think that what they're doing in the NBA with Shaq and Charles.
Well, that producer came from there.
Oh, okay.
The producer from the NBA and TNT came from the NFL and Fox.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. That's why, because Charles Barkley is in the Terry Bradshaw chair.
Yeah.
Terry or Howie Long is in the Kenny Smith chair. Ernie is in the original JB chair. So, which is now Kurt Menefee. Yeah. So that was and then the casts of each one have gotten bigger, but yeah, that's the original concept of it.
Is there a voice you've never quite gotten?
Tons of them, lots of them.
Really?
If you've never heard me do it, yeah. If I could do it, I probably would. But there's plenty that if, like I said, if you haven't heard me do it, I can't do it. I used to do a lot less. I throw out a lot more now that I don't think are as good as what I used to do because I don't work on them as much as I did originally. But yeah, there's plenty that I can't.
How do you keep it fresh? Because I think we've talked about this before. I don't know if it was on the air or not. A guy like Rich Little.
Right.
I mean, that guy is still working.
Well, I'd gotten like that a little while. I mean, I got stagnant and didn't change a lot of things for a while. And then I just I worked less and had more fun. and that's for me, there's been a lot of the stuff with this election, although it's walking on that tightrope to try and not make anybody mad, which is crazy because what actually works is to make some people mad. That's right. A big thing. I saw Jeff Dye, who's a funny comedian, a good friend of mine too, had a great line. He's like, I used to talk about cats. Nobody cared who I was. Now I talk about things that are controversial and I actually have these thoughts on them. And people are like, you should probably talk about cats. I'd like you more. He's like, no, nobody ever talked about me.
Right.
He ends up on, doing Joe Rogan and stuff like that and doing all this stuff that whether you like it or not, he's giving his thoughts, and that's a weird place that we're in right now, where it does seem like a lot of people are scared to talk and just give their opinions if it's not the one that seems to be okayed by everybody.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I think I've said this. I think when I talked to Holmberg, I talked about this. I believe comedy, of all things, stand-up comedy, is going to salvage the First Amendment. I think this fight between guys, when you see guys like Chappelle and you see guys like Ricky Gervais, and that'll stand up and say, I'm going to say what I think, and if you laugh, you laugh. That, I think, is having that kind of courage is something.
Yeah, I think so. Those guys are at the untouchable point too, though. You think you're getting them, but it's not, because they have their own world and businesses. Shane Gillis is another one that's created that off of there, and is didn't apologize, didn't cower, just kept doing his thing, believed he was good with what he was doing, knew who he was, and didn't play that game, and now thriving off of it.
Do you think it would be easier for you to go dirty?
Yeah, way easier. Yeah. I mean, I've thought about it at times. I don't really care. It's just my business model that's what it currently is. If the corporate world dried up, I would probably... I don't know. What I like is when people enjoy the show. And for me, a lot of my audience doesn't like that.
Right.
So I don't. That's pretty much why it is. If I were to do a dirty show, like a specifically dirty show, and label it that, and everybody knowing about that, coming to that, knew that coming in, I wouldn't really care so much. I don't have as much fun with that. I mean, there are times with friends I say just awful things, and I'm like, that's hilarious.
But doing them in the voices would be hilarious.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. Yeah, there's certain things when it's fish out of water type of sayings, that type of stuff.
When you Ben Campbell, local radio guy.
Yeah, he's one of the best voice guys that I've ever heard.
He won a national contest put on by Howard Stern doing the Barack Obama voice. Yeah. And so with that came a cash, but it also came a contract. And he told us he had to quit because the writers for Stern were so dirty.
Right.
And here he was on a local radio station that was not the vibe that they had. It wasn't, their reputation. So he had to give up the gig doing that because it just didn't mesh. You couldn't turn it on.
I just would have told other people it wasn't me anymore. I mean, if it's a phone call and they don't see you, just there's a lot of lying that goes on in the business. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, but it's one of those things where you're right. I think that the part of the funny is when you don't expect that person to say that.
Yeah, it depends on the situation and who the audience is. I mean, some people just don't like to hear that stuff.
Right.
I don't want to put that in front of those people. Some comics and some of the best comics in the world don't care. They're just doing what they do.
Ron White.
And I think that's great. There are times where I wish I had that, way about me, that type of persona, that I was the Teflon type of guy. I mean, most people find a brand, and what their brand is. Charles Barkley can say lots of different things because you're listening to Charles Barkley to hear what he's going to say. You're not. Some people are listening to condemn him and shut him down, that type of thing, but it doesn't work because that's his persona. Trump's got that same kind of thing. Is I'm going to say what I'm about to say, and then I'll have said it. He's doing that. That's his point of view, his persona, his brand, and that's. If you have a brand of being super clean, which is a lot of what people see me, and then you go against that, all of a sudden people are like, whoa, you're not that guy, and that's what.
But I think people, just my perspective, I think people respect you more because you are funny. It seems almost like it's
some people, older people probably. I mean, I don't think young people.
I think anybody.
It depends on the person. I think there's different. I think there are plenty. They're probably just the people you run into that are in your circles. I think those people probably do. I think there are people that just don't care, and there's no different respect. They just think the funniest thing, if you're that funny, that's the way to go. And I don't disagree with that.
Do you like it when someone's not funny? Do you find humor in that? Like when someone's on stage and they're just bombing.
If I know they're good, yes, I find that hilarious. If somebody is, I call it eating it.
Yeah.
If somebody's just eating it on stage, but I know they're a very funny person, and it's that is one of the best things in the world. Now, if they're not funny, what I perceive to be funny, if they're not that, and they're dying on stage, I feel bad for them. That secondhand embarrassment. Like, you gotta maybe rework that. I don't. But there are people who thrive off of that too. We all have different experiences in our lives that lead us to think different ways, and I don't enjoy that. But some people think that's the most wonderful thing in the world.
I don't go to karaoke because I get embarrassed for the girl that wants to sing to her best friend that's drunk and cries while she's. I get embarrassed. I get embarrassed for her.
Well, I never liked the bad auditions especially the original American Idol and some of these America's Got. I don't like that. I feel a lot of times it's exploiting people who don't realize how bad. Some people are doing it on purpose.
Sure.
But I like to get a tear in my eye when somebody's that good. I do like that. I do enjoy, but it's a mix because not everybody is the same way. Some people watch those shows just to see the train wrecks.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you say that. I was, again, videos on Instagram. The school janitor on AGT that sang Journey and was, just had the whole place captivated, and he was so emotional about finally. And you think, how do you not get caught up in that? Awesome. But there are people that, you're right. There are people that just want to see you fall on your
TikTok
face.
During the shutdowns and stuff like that that's what TikTok was. Is the kids, my kids would call it cringy. Like when TikTok started, it was a lot. It was not a lot of great upper level content. It was awkward people doing awkward things. It was that karaoke factor, the American Idol audition factor, where there was a lot of bad, awful stuff that was you're laughing for the wrong reasons and feeling bad. I would watch a sitcom when I was little, and if it got to be a tense moment, I'd actually turn it off when I was a little kid. I was just like, I don't want to know what happens. But that's not what keeps most people, because that's where ratings seem to be. That seems to be what keeps people coming back, is they have that little bit in them that they went, oh, where's this go? My wife is like that. She can't wait to see how bad something goes.
That's why I watch Gordon Ramsay shows. Oh, because I cannot wait to watch him just destroy somebody.
Yeah.
Tell somebody how, let's make your signature dish, and then this is the worst thing I've ever tasted.
This is rubbish.
Yeah.
It's ridiculously bad.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, and that's it. Everybody's different. That's why he has an audience, because you enjoy that, and it works. And it might not work for somebody else, and that's what's great, is people find their audiences. And it used to be years and years ago. That didn't. Like when I started doing comedy, you had to do the broadest comedy possible to try and get more people to find you, so people would tell other people. Now you put something very narrowly out there, and it gets passed around to everybody who's a fan of that possibly little thing. Like I use the Better Call Saul, one of my favorite shows of all time, with the Jimmy McGill character, the Saul Goodman character. Did you know that you have rights? The Constitution says you do. A lot of people have no idea what that is, but the people who do know are like, oh my gosh, you do that? And then they'll share it with other people. Very different how that works nowadays as opposed to even 15, 20 years ago. There was not a lot of that.
So the voices you did 15 years ago were the voices everybody knew.
I think so, yeah. You had to. Because people didn't know about the specific ones. Now that's a weird thing about doing a lot of impressions on the internet. If you do one impression, it might hit an audience, but a different impression might be a completely different audience. So if I'm doing Paul Giamatti, I believe that, that's a different audience than a group that's watching an Adam Sandler movie, right? Yeah, David, you. So those two might not get the same. So it goes into the algorithm and might die, because they're equally good impressions from me, I think, but they're going to the same audience that liked the first one. And that's not that doesn't work.
Do you take pride in the fact that you're funny without the voices? That you're a great writer?
I think so. I don't. I used to be a better writer. I think I used to really, really work hard at writing, and now I throw a lot of stuff out there and see how it goes. If there is a complaint I would have about myself is that I need to spend more time writing. A lot of my act becomes riffing to create, to go off on tangents.
Haven't you earned that with your audience? Your audience knows they're going to get
the audience, but to gain new people and younger people that have to know where that's coming from. Yeah, I mean, that's a big thing. It's the people who like me on, for example, Instagram are different than the people who like me on Twitter. Twitter was my sports comedy audience coming up, and then I got on Instagram, and it's Marvel characters and Robert Downey Jr. burping his way through lines. So it's different stuff that works on those two platforms. So
how did you figure that out?
You just see what works and what gets the numbers. I mean, there is a real science to social media. Now the algorithms change and how it all works, but if you consistently put out content to the same audience, you have a much better chance of, and it's very repetitive, you have a much better chance of building that audience because they're the ones who see you all the time. I have a different take on I don't like to see the same thing over and over and over, but that's not just for the difference between my wife and me. She could watch the same kind of cat video or dog video 1,000 times. I can't watch it, but I'm not the average person watching social media.
I've watched the Ocean's movies, the Ocean's 11, 12. I've watched those movies 30 times each.
You're like a little kid watching a Disney film.
Yeah, I am.
Yeah.
I am.
Can we watch it's
Frozen
weird again?
Yeah, and what I do it because I don't want to be disappointed in something I've never seen before.
Well, people do that with restaurants, right? People do that with restaurants all the time. As you go to a chain restaurant, that's the reason there are chain restaurants, because you know what you're going to get. You're not going into a little dive bar that somebody said was good, but they maybe have a totally different preferences than you. You like comfort. I mean, that's why. That's one of the things I've done over the years in the last couple of years is I take a cold shower every morning if I can. Right now it's hard to do in Arizona. My water doesn't.
Warm.
Yeah, my water doesn't even get cold anymore at this point. But when I would take a really cold shower in the winter months, that supposedly gets your brain firing to do something. Brush your teeth with your left hand. They say all these different things. I think I'm probably like you, where I do like comfort and really enjoy comfort for most of my life. I try to be comfortable constantly, and that's what I was doing with my act, was being comfortable. Now what I try to do is get out there and do something different, and it's very uncomfortable. Some people thrive off of that, and that's what they really, really love. Those are some of the best comics that go out there and do something different all the time. I think John Holmberg is like that. He has a great mix of it. He has a mix of doing stuff that he knows works and trying new stuff. I struggle with the new stuff a lot of the time because people have this, and I even think it's a false sense of how good certain things I do are. I'm like, no, it's really just because I've done it a bunch of times that you think that's that good and you're used to me doing it. But something new, you do it, put a new impression out there, and you'll hear more of my voice in there or something to that effect. And people are like, that's not that good. And it gets really annoying to see that over and over. Well, these young people or new people that aren't professionals will put something out and you're like, that's unbelievable how good that person is. Like, I've been doing that for 20 years and mine definitely sounds quite a bit better. Now I've practiced for a lot more.
Yeah.
And I just go, wow, that's just what the reality of the world is. People like to see the amateur type of person succeed too. And if you're the old guy who's been doing it a long time, you're like, he's just doing the same thing.
But you have to, because you do more than just the voice, you've got to keep up with what's happening because you've got to get the character right. You've got to get the face.
Trump has changed. For example, Trump has completely changed. I mean, he used to do, there was a very big, now he's doing the quiet.
Yeah.
The quiet, When he first went up at the Republican convention, I watched the first 10, 15 minutes. I'm like, this is an incredible transformation. This is a guy that a lot of other people could get on board with. And then about 20 minutes in, I was like, what is he? He's just going back and doing the other thing. I think a lot of people just stopped watching at a certain point because he was going on so long. But it's like, you could win some other people this way, but with a Donald Trump, that's not what he does. That's he goes off and what did he have? Like thousands of words of ad lib type of stuff. Yeah. And if you just would have stayed there in that.
So what, he spoke for 92 minutes,
yeah.
But he had written a 45-minute speech.
Right.
So half of the speech.
Well, I think what
ad-lib.
he got involved in, and this is just my analysis, is he wanted to show that he could talk longer than Joe Biden. And that got in his head of that was the most important thing in the world. And I don't think that was the most important thing for him. I think discipline would have been the most important thing for him. But I've been around super rich and super powerful people. It's really hard to tell them what to do. I did an event for billionaires. You can't tell a billionaire to be quiet. If they want to talk during the show, they're going to talk during the show. That nobody tells them no. They're not used to hearing that because the situation might be bad for whoever told them to do that. So they might have confidence that they could do that, but a random person's not going to go over to Jerry Jones, the owner of the Cowboys. Shh, that's not going to happen.
Yeah,
and you're going to be a has-been.
What is he? Is he someone a little sensitive?
I've never met him. I know people. A friend of mine does a great impression of Gordon Keith in Dallas, and he's done it with him, and he's known in Dallas for doing it. So at a big station called The Ticket, which is he's done Jerry with Jerry on the phone, and I think if you're Jerry Jones, you don't. Whatever. I mean, people are doing stuff. You're just going to do your own thing anyway. He's been doing that with the team for a long time.
Yeah, but there are people, though, that are so sensitive about that. They believe that you have no right to.
Yeah, but everybody's different. There's the people that believe that any publicity is good publicity, and there are people that worry that anything could hurt them. And there's probably a difference of $25 to $100 million or something. Once you get to a certain point, they don't care. Say whatever. You can't stop people. The reality is you can't stop people from saying terrible things about you. Most of the time it's anonymous. You don't know who they even are. The thing that hurts more is when somebody who's in your field says something and you're like, maybe I have to take a look at this. Maybe they could be right. Now, this is a person I'm talking about that's not jealous of you in any way. That can hit with anybody too. I'm just talking about somebody you respect and know, and they say, yeah, and then you might have to do a little self-reflection there.
Do you collaborate, or is everything you do solo?
I do. Yeah, it depends on. I like it when people come up with ideas for me that are, around me. Holmberg is a guy who's when I did that 30 for 30 on Richard Sherman years ago that blew up and went crazy, went super viral before lots of things went super viral. Holmberg was there at the shooting and had quite a few tags and little changes and great ideas. So, yeah, people like that. There are just people who, and there are certain things he'll suggest that there's no way I could do.
Which makes it even funnier.
Yeah, and we have text.
He knows you can't.
Yeah, and he uses, again, you should do this, as I know he's just laughing.
I get the same kind of text.
Yeah.
You know the brand.
Right, yeah. It's when you're in that, when you've got yourself in a box, but that's part of being employed by certain people, you by a company, me by companies that would hire me to do that's where I make most of my money.
But it's not fake. It is who you are.
Yeah, I think it is
but it's just like we both know Holmberg, and some of my favorite times are sitting down and listening to him say things that I could never say.
Oh, yeah, that's the best to me. That stuff is the best. And there is envy. I'm envious of it at times, like, gosh, if I could only go that route. But, the other thing is I have kids. When you have kids, that's changed a lot. And my kids are getting older where they don't care as much. Both are going to be at ASU. So, and when they're in middle school and high school, I really watched what I said and did because. But
didn't you get them involved a little bit?
Yeah, a little bit. But my daughter wants to be more behind the scenes. She likes the PR world and stuff like that. But they do little things, and they're very funny and have the mimicry ability. So it would play out. But they never wanted them to feel like they were exploited for more likes and stuff. It was if they wanted to do it. So that's another. I think there's going to be a generation of kids growing up that are like, my parents just used me to get their numbers up.
Right.
And they're going to be really embarrassed, and there's going to be a lot of therapy that there were kids that were like, I can't believe you put me in that situation. I feel like there's a lot of
There's a lot of
about
times
him.
where your parents would shield your idiocy.
Well, we used to be embarrassed about things.
Right.
Now we post it online and hope it goes viral.
Yeah.
It used to be, there was shame. There was a situation where if you tripped, you would be like, I hope nobody saw that. And now you trip to the people like, I hope somebody got that.
Now you get people faking it.
Yeah. You can't even tell.
When you said you like people that bring up suggestions, you're not talking about fans. Hey, you know who you should do.
No. That can be the worst. But no, it's friends around me. If you had something, I would ignore it. If you
have ignored it.
Yeah, no, I would never tell you that. No, I think there are people have great ideas and thoughts that are around me, and I try not to take. Every once in a while, I will do that type of thing on the TikTok platform, or try to make that so I didn't just sound old with the TikTok or Instagram, where you take their comment and put it on the post and it's attributed to them. That can also get you out of, it wasn't my idea. Jim Rome, sports broadcaster, used to do that with faxes, and probably he does it with emails now. Dear Jim, and then the worst thing you could possibly say in parentheses, and then he would say, I can't believe you said that. No, you said that on purpose to put it off on somebody else, which is a brilliant way to go about it.
I don't think people understand how difficult it is to be funny. Because for me, I can be in a situation, quick one-liner and a comeback in a conversation and get a laugh out of people. But there's no way I can get on stage and do what you do.
Honestly, with you, I do think you say a lot of witty things, but with, I'm going to say, bad timing. It's not a comedic timing.
Right.
You say things to make a point.
Right.
A lot of times you do to make people think. You get a thinking, it's almost like that's what you go for. You don't go for, I go for a lot of silly, over-the-top types of stuff. So I don't know what your comedic timing would be if you were trying for that, but I don't think that's you.
Not in the show, but in, like everybody else, when you're in your circle of friends, it's a different atmosphere. It is.
Yeah. It's just, a lot of it's what makes us laugh is just horrific stuff.
Right. It's horrific, but there are people that just aren't funny at times, and there are people that can be. But I'm not somebody that could have an act that I could go up on stage.
Oh,
and
you
be
could.
funny.
If you learn the formulas, you could do it. I mean, there are plenty of formulas. I don't know how big you'd get doing it, but there are plenty of unfunny comedians that people think are funny.
Telling stories, like I am a better storyteller, so I can get a laugh knowing that I'm going to tell you a real, true story about my family.
Right.
And I know you're going to laugh because it's the most ridiculous thing that's ever happened. Right. But that's not the same.
No, because people won't take the time on a stage to listen to a long story for even a big payoff. You've got to have payoffs along the way, and if you're telling a story as a storyteller, there are very few people who can keep the audience interested for that long. I always say be interesting. It's more important to be interesting than it is to be funny. There are plenty of people that are very, very interesting, that are kind of funny, that people think are brilliantly hilarious. And they're funny, but they're more. I'd probably rather be interesting, to be honest with you.
Joe Coy.
I don't know much about his act, but where are you going with that?
He centers because he's Filipino.
Right.
He centers on a Filipino audience, but I think he's an interesting guy. He becomes funny with with the observations
he's got big over the top movements,
sure,
and facial expressions and stuff like that. I know he does a lot about his mom, but like for example, when he hosted that award show, it was a fish out of water kind of thing. He got a lot of blowback. He's one of the funniest guys in the world. But it's the audience that's there, and people didn't know who he was, supposedly. He sells stadiums.
Yeah.
He's a big deal.
He points at a woman in the audience, and she's got her purse around her neck, the thing, and points out how typical that is Filipino. It's an observation. It's interesting.
Cultural, yeah.
And he says, I guarantee you there's snacks in that purse.
Right.
And then he takes the purse from the woman. There's a bag of snacks in the purse. That kind of, there's nothing really, it's not a punchline, but it's observational, and it's hilarious when he pulls it off.
Yeah, the fact that you're going to know, you've got to bridge a gap there. He says something exists, and when it's the same structure as a joke, this in here is the bridging of that. Well, when it's revealed what's in there is what he said, it's like ta-da, and that's where the laugh emerges.
Do you like improv?
Yeah, I'm not great at. I'm decent at improving myself. As far as doing an ensemble improv, I think that's a little tougher for me. You need some training, I think, to do that well. I had a little bit of training, but I would have needed more. I'm very envious of people who are really good at that.
What about acting? What about?
That's more what I'm trying to do right now, and just like semi-serious types of stuff that have a little comedic twist to it, as opposed to being the over-the-top kind of phony person. That's a lot of the auditions I get are try and do something interesting with this that's not just what a stage actor would normally do. So I'm doing those all the time.
How's it going? Do you like it? Enjoy
I like it. I mean, it's just a lot of work to not get anything. You just do it, send it off, or you do it in front of somebody and you have no idea what they're looking for. It doesn't matter if you're good a lot of the times. Do you have the look? Like a lot of times they just look at you and go, not, we gave you a chance, but you're not the person.
Is it the challenge of it? Is that why? I mean, you're so successful in one world.
No, I just think it would be fun to do. I mean, I think it's fun to. Yeah, I guess some of it's the challenge, but some of it's to just be seen in a different way. You just get tired of doing the same thing.
There's a level of arrogance I have.
Level?
Level 5? With this. Yes, with this. I think I could be an actor. I think I could walk onto a movie set and be an actor in a movie, depending on the role.
Maybe. I mean, it depends on how good are you with lines they're telling you to say. Because a lot of people, it's really hard to make it seem like you're...
But I'm obviously out of my mind because it is hard work to be an actor like it's hard work to be a comedian.
Well, yeah. I was trying to say that nicely, but glad you cut to the...
Cut to the chase?
Yeah. I mean, that was... There are some people who are very natural and can just step in and do things. I don't know. I'm not going to tell you can't.
Howard Stern in Private Parts, right, where he played himself, but he was really good in that movie.
Yeah, I thought. Yeah, very good. But to play somebody else with a different demeanor, not talk like yourself, it can be hard to even play yourself. But I think that trying to play somebody else and get what the director and the writer are looking for can be hard, especially when they tell you, well, you're not getting it. And then you get inside your head and you start to go, it gets worse. So that's another thing is when to be able to take the direction and make it work, that's a whole other thing.
Yeah. That would be the hard part. Like if I thought this is what this should look and sound like, right, to have someone say, no, that's not what we're looking for.
And sometimes when you see it, it's not at all how you feel you're doing it.
Are the voices like that for you? I meant to ask you that. I'm sorry I'm jumping around.
Yes, some.
Because, when you hear your voice for the first time, it doesn't sound like it does in your head.
Right.
So how are you able to do other people so accurately?
Well, because people tell you when they laugh and clap. That's how you know. I mean, that's the only way. I mean, I'm my own worst critic, so people tell me something stinks. I'm like, I know, but what am I going to do?
Does your wife like it, or does your wife get annoyed with it?
As long as the check's clear, she's good with it. I don't.
You ever argue in somebody else's voice?
No.
How about her? Do you ever do her voice? That would be great.
No, but you just.
That's my suggestion.
That's a great
argue with your wife in her voice.
Phenomenal, really.
Hard
good.
to believe I'm divorced.
Yeah, I was just gonna point that out that I like having half my stuff.
No, you like having all of your stuff.
Well, yeah.
I have half my stuff.
She has her outlook is that whole, like your kids, whatever's mine is ours and whatever's ours is ours, something like that. I don't know. I'll get myself in trouble.
Yeah. When you plan things now, you said now you like to be able to. Do you pick and choose what you're doing? Are you a lot more selective in the gigs you do?
Yeah. I only take certain things. Yeah, most of the time if it's a club because I'm going to have fun at the club. Certain casinos, a theater here and there, but I definitely pick and choose what I want to do. They might keep upping the money until it's something that I want to do, but that can be part of it. But generally, I take the stuff that I like that I think is going to be fun.
Are you surprised by the longevity and the popularity of what you do?
It depends on how people. I mean. Not as popular as I was when I was on TV a lot. So
yeah, but listen, you're being humble because we've done some stuff and talked about shows you're doing, and they sell out so quickly.
Some do, some don't. I mean,
when people find out, when people in the building found out you were going to be doing this, people love your act. They love the voices. Everybody has a great memory of a time when you've done something.
Right.
You've got to get stopped on the street by people that either want to hear a voice or want to tell you how great they think you are.
Yeah, they think they want to hear a voice, or they think I was their gym coach, their gym teacher. So
do they ever hand you the phone and say, "Hey, here, call my mom"?
Oh yeah, that's a bad. Yeah, that's people want to do video, and I'll do sometimes some sound stuff. But when people want to do video, it's like you don't know where they're going to post it. You don't know who they are. You got to be real careful with that kind of stuff. It's I all of a sudden I'm saying something to somebody who does some terrible things, and then people try to pass it off as you're their friend.
Ron.
No, I don't. I just they found me on the street.
Video gets posted on the clan.com.
Yeah, you never know. You never know. So
do people understand when you say that? Because people get upset.
Some do, some don't. But I say, hey, I'll take a picture with you, no problem. But the video stuff, that gets weirder because it's easier to do a passing in time, a picture, and say, well, I just met that person.
Yeah.
But to do a video with somebody, they're like, you knew them pretty well, right? No, you just do that for everybody? No, I don't. Okay, now you're painting yourself into a corner.
What all these questions, I've asked you a lot of these before. What's the voice that you knew I nailed this? Morgan Freeman?
Morgan Freeman's way up there. John Madden part of the way through, because it used to be way up here, and then it became that one that sounded almost exactly like him, and then I turned it into the character. But there are different ones. It depends how you record it, how many different times, how many different takes you can do. There's some that just are very easy to say whatever I want. It's almost like knowing a language and being able to speak the language. There are other ones where I can just say certain lines. So I don't know. And people hear things differently. Remember, these are magic tricks. It's not sorcery. So I'm not conjuring up the voice. I'm doing things with my throat or whatever to try and manipulate it to get that sound. Well, different people's ears. You ever do the thing where you go on YouTube and listen to the pitches, that there are certain high pitches that if you're 30 you can't hear anymore.
No, I haven't
40
seen
you can't. Oh, you've never seen that? You lose a range of being able to hear certain tones.
Oh, great.
You can't hear high pitches. I can't hear them either. My kids be like, "Well, turn that on." I'm like, "I don't hear anything." It's like,
so it's like your vision. I mean, I can't see.
Right, I can't. I got the old man
This
glasses
morning,
too.
I had to ask Julia this morning. I said, "Can you reprint that article and make it in a Word document and enlarge the font? Because even with the reading
one
glasses,
letter per page."
Yeah, I'm not kidding. It's like an eye chart.
Yeah.
I couldn't read. I had reading glasses. I couldn't read on the page. She's over there giggling now. She had to reprint it for me.
Yeah,
it's terrible.
Yeah. Well,
so now you're telling me I can't hear things either.
There's plenty of things. There's probably people saying worse things about you, but they're just doing it in real high pitches.
Maybe that's the secret around here.
Yeah, it's not a secret anymore.
Not anymore. All right, so I want to wrap this up, but I want to ask what's next. I mean, what are you working on? What can we expect?
I just audition for stuff and see what happens, see if something sticks. I've been auditioning for all kinds of different stuff that mostly I'll never get, but they're different types of things, and we'll see what happens.
Well, anything? Can you tell me what the most interesting thing is?
They're always just, most of the time they're streaming services, shows, mostly serious types of stuff that's not like overly dramatic, but playing a little character that's talking. Like the way my agents, I think, do it is they try to get you in scenes that are important. So because I'm with a big agency, they don't try to get you just any part. They try to get you significant parts that'll mean something to get you the next part. There's a science behind that too, and I don't even know what it is really, and I don't care to know, because then I would probably stop.
You just go where they tell you, or
I really try to do the things they send me, because I think they know in general what they're doing with that. There might be stuff that I'm interested in that I tell them about, and they could go try and get that, an audition for that for me. But in general, yeah, I mean, I have taken the Bryan Cranston advice that I've heard online, which is don't try to do what they want, do what you think. and what you think is right for you to do in it, because a lot of times they don't know what they're looking for. You think when you first start out, you think they know what they're looking for, but then you find out they have no idea what they're looking for. But it's my wife with directions. She can't tell me how to get there, but she knows it when she sees it. And a lot of times we go past it first and then come back. So I think that can happen. A lot of times they might pass over somebody and then come back and be like, you know what, this is interesting. So don't do the same thing everybody else is doing, because you don't stand out.
There's when I was just at we were at the Republican convention in Milwaukee, and I had a guest. His name is Randy Sutton, who is a former Vegas cop. And have you seen the movie Casino? Mm-hmm. So he's in that movie. At the scene where Sharon Stone is ramming her car into De Niro's car and the cops come, he's the cop in that speaking role. And we just got to talking about it. He was a Vegas cop and morphed into acting. He said he walked in, they said they need a real cop for this scene. Right. Will you audition? So he said, sure. He said, I walked into the audition, and it was De Niro and was it Scorsese that directed it? Yeah. He said it was the two of them in the room. Yeah. He said, and I never even auditioned. We just started talking, and I was telling him cop stories.
This guy, this is the guy.
And that's what he said.
Marty, this guy.
Yeah. Yeah. That's exactly. He said never auditioned. I just started telling him cop stories.
Well, that's what you need, is just if you fit the part and you're believable, that's what they're looking for in that movie. And he probably gets other cop roles because of it.
Right.
Yeah. Because if you find that, then you have the piece of tape, and now you can use that, and other people are like, oh, we know this guy can do this. The
guy that I used to rodeo with here in Arizona is in Yellowstone.
Okay.
And he's a big prominent character. I don't know if you watch the show, but he's a big prominent character in it. Lloyd is his name. Mm-hmm. And he was just a rodeo cowboy and wanted to get into acting and happened to find that role. Right. And that guy will work for the rest of his life if he wants to. And he's just playing himself. Yeah. He's the guy we all knew. Yeah, absolutely. That's you can't get more authentic than that. Somebody can try and act that out, but he can be it. All right, so are you still going to play clubs here and there? Are you going to play? Are there any local shows coming up here in Arizona? Nothing as of right now, but usually probably something in the first part of 2025. So you'll come on the show to promote? Yeah, because you are a relentless promoter. I try my hardest. You do? Yeah, and you're great at it. Yeah. All right, well, thanks for doing this. Thank you for having me. Any voice you want to finish with? Anything we need to hear? Did we? I think we hit. I don't know. We could do some Trump to some Biden to Donald Trump. Wait a second. Who's that? It was Bush doing Trump. What's that? I could do that too with the fishy face, man. That's a pretty good one right there. To Barack Obama. To the old school Robin Williams, which people seem to be calling out a lot. That was really weird. I don't know. To Adam Sandler, to Morgan Freeman, maybe a little John Madden, John Gruden, and a little Spider 2Y Banana. Paul Giamatti is always fun to throw in there. To Chris Rock, I can't believe he just said that. I mean, he's still doing John Madden. Then end with the John C. Reilly. Did you touch my drum set? How about Barkley? That's a knucklehead. That's why didn't you call that out while I was doing it? Waited till I was done. Because that's Mike Broomhead. Cleaning up, knucklehead. Broomhead. Frank Caliendo, thanks for doing this, man. Thank you.